How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. I want to invite you to the gathering. We're finalizing the lineup. We're waiting to hear back from Senators Ricketts, Thune, and Cruz, and Rick Scott from Florida we've invited. We got a great lineup. Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, Doug Ducey, the former governor of Arizona, Mike Pence, former vice president, Kat Kammack, congresswoman from Florida, Kevin Hern, the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. We're going to have a great lineup in Atlanta, and we hope that you'll join us. If you text the word engage to 33777, you will be able to get a ticket, and time's running out to get a ticket. Text engage to 33777. You can come hang out with me and the crowd in Atlanta, Georgia. It's where we take our audience and bring everybody together in person. We hang out. Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, is actually going to hang out with us on Wednesday night at the welcome reception, and is going to hang out, spend time with the crowd. So that's going to be a fantastic. He's really excited to hang out with everybody. So text the word engage to 33777 if you would like to come to the gathering. Looking forward to having everybody. It is August 8th through the 11th. Really, it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. 11th is check out and go home day. The big days are the 9th and the 10th. The night of the 8th, which is a Thursday night, and then the 9th, and then Saturday the 10th is a big day, and I interview the people. I take your questions, weave them into the conversations. It'll be a lot of fun. Text engage to 33777. I now need to move on to a disturbing story. And it actually is a disturbing story, and we're not dealing with genital mutilation and stuff like that, but I've been worried about this. I've been beating the drum on this. I'm trying not to be Chicken Little or Henny Penny or any of the hysterical animals that your fairy tales are about. But the warning signs are there. There are big red flags that something wicked this way comes. I want to read for you a story from NBC News. Tom Winter is one of the best national security reporters in the country. I wish he worked somewhere else because NBC News is such a discredited organization, but he's great. The Department of Homeland Security has identified over 400 immigrants who have come to the United States from Central Asia and elsewhere as subjects of concern because they were brought by an ISIS-affiliated human smuggling network, 3 U.S. officials tell NBC News. While over 150 of them have been arrested, the whereabouts of over 50 remain unknown, the official said. And Immigration and Customs Enforcement is looking to arrest them on immigration charges when they are located. In this case, it was the information that suggested a potential tie to ISIS because of some of the individuals involved in smuggling migrants to the border that led us to want to take extra care, said a senior Biden administration official. And out of an abundance of caution, make sure that we exercised our authority in the most expansive and appropriate way to mitigate risk because of this potential connection being made. The official added that since ICE began arresting migrants brought to the U.S. by the ISIS-linked smuggling group several months ago, no information has emerged tying them to a threat. Many of the more than 400 migrants who crossed the southern border were released by customs because they were not on the government's terror watch list. But recent attacks in Russia by terrorists have fueled heightened concern about ISIS and its offshoot, ISIS-K. There's one story that you should be paying attention to right there. That's a big story. It's a big deal. But just you wait. There's more. The special operators are sounding the alarm. And it's an alarm that we should be listening to because they happen to know things. This is the Special Operators Association of America. They released this last night, an open letter of concern. Special Operations Association of America represents thousands of Army Rangers and Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Marine Raiders, Air Force Air Commandos, and other special operators who have fought and currently serve on behalf of our nation. We are gravely concerned by the current heightened risk of terrorist attacks against targets inside the United States and both U.S. and allied interests abroad. Our complete withdrawal from Afghanistan without a viable stay-behind or over-the-horizon counterterrorism and intelligence capability to suppress threats has created a vacuum in the region in which anti-American terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are flourishing once again. The United States has lost significant intelligence collection capabilities in the region, leaving federal authorities blind and deaf to emerging threats emanating from the region. The creation of new and reestablishment of previous terrorist training camps within Afghanistan has led to successful, deadly attacks by the Islamic State's regional branch against targets in Iran, in Russia, and elsewhere, adding further credence to the notion the U.S. is at risk. The heightened risk has been verified by multiple departments and agencies of the federal government, mainstream journalists and publications, former senior officials from both parties, and from former allies with whom we maintain communication. This risk is compounded by developments in the Middle East and the porous, unsecured southern border through which we have seen numerous instances of individuals on terror watch lists and others from adversarial countries that attempt to enter the United States. And those are the ones we know about only because they were detected. We do not know how many other terrorists are currently inside the United States. At the same time, the United States has continued to send the Taliban millions of dollars for counterterrorism cooperation, which has proved to be only marginally successful given developments on the ground in Afghanistan. Millions more in aid that is being repurposed by the Taliban to suit its own purpose. As former director of the Central Intelligence Agency Mike Morrell recently wrote, the terrorism warning lights are blinking red again, echoes of the run-up to 9/11. Time is not on our side. But wait, there's more. Remember the story I told you about from CBS News where they arrested those 8 guys from Tajikistan? Let me follow up on this. My buddy Bill sent me a follow-up email from CBS News. This was an advisory sent yesterday at 6 p.m. from CBS News. Federal law enforcement acquired intelligence information indicating the 8 men from Tajikistan were inside the U.S. and had possible ties to ISIS, according to 2 sources familiar with the investigation. The FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force opened an investigation. Investigators monitored their communications, the sources said, including following their activities on social media like chat rooms and encrypted sites. The FBI uncovered that the individuals were in contact with bad actors and potential ties to ISIS. Investigators obtained a court-ordered FISA warrant and conducted surveillance. Officials were concerned the individuals could have been plotting a terrorist attack. The FBI was working with Homeland Security and ICE. Federal agents arrested the 8 men on immigration charges. Now, on immigration charges, why? And this is the thing that caught my eye. This is the thing, the media that's so upset about 16 economists saying Donald Trump could provoke inflation, they've ignored this part. The FBI arrested these 8 individuals for immigration charges because they were so concerned about the rapidity at which they were planning terror attacks on the United States. The investigation is ongoing, and the men have not been charged with terror-related charges. The source said there was no evidence to suggest a specific targeted attack was planned and no imminent threat, but, given the nature of the conversations and the speed of the communication, they decided to go on and charge them with immigration charges so that we couldn't get to the point of them actually planning to carry out a terrorist attack. They didn't want to wait to see what they were planning because they were afraid they could plan so quickly and execute that it would be too late to stop them. So they charged them with immigration charges to short-circuit it. So I want to paint a picture for you of what was happening. These 8 individuals came into the United States. At first, they didn't appear to be on terror watch list. They didn't appear to be a threat. So they let them go, wander the country. And some agent somewhere began to dig on the 8 men and discovered they had ties to ISIS and grew concerned. So the FBI had to track those 8 men down wherever they were and start watching them. And as those 8 individuals reached out to other individuals, the FBI would surveil those individuals. And those that were innocuous, they would let go, and those that weren't, they would keep watching. And when those individuals would reach out to other individuals, the FBI would watch those people, and the innocuous ones they'd let go, and the suspicious ones they'd study. And they built a web of contacts between the 8 men with ties to ISIS to the people they were talking to and the people those people were talking to see what was planning. They followed them around the internet. They followed them around town. They monitored their communications. They spied on them without these people knowing they were being spied upon, we hope. And the Joint Terrorism Task Force became so concerned about what they were seeing, they short-circuited their entire investigation of the web of contacts to nab these 8 people immediately, undercutting the entirety of the investigation. They were so concerned and decided it was more important to short-circuit and grab these 8 individuals now on immigration charges than wait to see what they did. That's how serious it was. The director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Mike Morrell, is saying, quote, "The terrorism warning lights are blinking red again, echoes of the run-up to 9/11. The Special Operators Association of America says they're hearing from their contacts overseas and at home, from people inside the government and outside the government, from people in the military and out of the military, that something bad is coming. They're seeing attacks by ISIS in Russia and in Europe. The warning signs about the Olympics, by the way, are overwhelming. Massive warning signs about terror attacks potential at the Olympics while France is in disarray over its election. You have 400 individuals smuggled into this country by ISIS. We've tracked down more than half of them. Some of them we don't know where they are. All because Joe Biden decided to placate the left and leave an open border. And all because Joe Biden decided to placate the left and abandon Afghanistan, where it had been several years till the day of evacuation. It had been several years since an American had been killed. We had stabilized the country. The Afghans themselves were dying for their country. With us helping them out, we handed it back to the Taliban and let them become a breeding ground again for terrorism. How many people are going to die because of the arrogance and impunity of the Biden administration? There is something wicked festering in the shadows, and all of our intelligence officials and military officials are warning us something wicked this way comes, and this administration does nothing. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson, 877-973-7. Y'all know the number. Brain fart. Because I got to remind you again, I am delighted. Speaker Johnson and Brian Kemp and Glenn Youngkin and Ron DeSantis, and we're going to have such a great lineup at the gathering. I hope you'll consider coming. Text engage to 33777. I'll send you the link back to order a ticket to be able to come. They're discounted hotel rates as well for the Hyatt. It should be a great time. I am just delighted to be able to have such a great lineup this year. Looking forward to it. It'll be August 8th through the 10th. Now, I got to play you some audio. This is Vivek Murthy. He is the Surgeon General of the United States.
There are a series of strategies we lay out in the report, Mika. You identified some of them, which are focused around firearm risk reduction strategies. Those include strengthening universal background checks, and they also include measures that would seek to put time and space between firearms and individuals who would seek to harm themselves or others. But what they also include are community-based violence intervention strategies, safe storage education programs and laws, advances and expansions in our research funding, as well as expanded access to mental health services.
I don't know that picking a gun control fight right now in the United States when people are worried about crime and the Democrats still want to defund police departments is a smart thing for this administration to do. It seems more like this administration is increasingly worried about losing to Donald Trump, and they are rushing with gusto to do as much as they can and put in place as much as they can so that Donald Trump can't stop them if he gets elected president again. There seems to be a lot of like preemptive damage control happening with his administration. And I got to tell you, I'm still in the camp that I think incumbents have unique strengths by virtue of incumbency, that if the race were held tomorrow, I think that Joe Biden's turnout machine could overwhelm the Republicans who are struggling. There are issues. This isn't to say Donald Trump can't win. He's ahead right now. I mean, he really could win, but turnout's going to be key. And all the Democrats seem to be doing is turning out progressives. You've got them all turned out. You're not turning out any independents. That's going to help Donald Trump. And then they're trying to realign how the presidency gets elected. This Hillsdale College wants you to take their survey of presidential selection. Do you like the Electoral College? Do you prefer a different way? A number of blue states would like to align their Electoral College members with the popular vote, so they're not getting rid of the Electoral College, which would force a constitutional amendment process, but just saying that their Electoral College will align with the national popular vote. What do you think about it? Hillsdale College wants to know. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com, you can take the survey and let Hillsdale College know what you think, and then you can find out more about them. They are a great conservative education institution. Great people. Dr. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, has turned it into a tremendous institution and now has a great K-12 program that schools can embrace as well. But take the presidential selection survey. Usually Hillsdale educates you. This is your opportunity to educate them on what you think about how we pick president in the United States. Go to ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. Go learn more about Hillsdale and take the presidential selection survey at ericforhillsdale.com. Hello, my friends. It is Eric Erickson here. And now we must go, well, to that time of day where we must discuss never mind, we've got breaking news. Wow. Hang on a second. Has this hit the wires yet? Because I'm seeing it. Oh my Lord in heaven. No, clearly that can't be right. That can't be. I mean, it is though. Okay, I have breaking news. The Quinnipiac poll has dropped. The Quinnipiac poll has been more biased towards Joe Biden than any other poll. The Quinnipiac poll actually is well known among Democrats and Republicans alike for having a Democrat bias that a lot of other polls don't. And so what's important here with the Quinnipiac poll is the trend line. What I mean by that is Quinnipiac is as a well-regarded pollster that has a Democratic bias that they haven't been able to figure out how to get out. It's not that the Quinnipiac polling wants to have a Democratic bias. It's that it does, and in its methodology hasn't figured out how to get out. Now I realize that some of you will struggle to grapple with that, but here's the bottom line. when you talk to Democratic and Republican pollsters, they all will tell you that Quinnipiac leans to the Democrats. And it's not something that the pollsters that conduct the Quinnipiac poll want to have happen. It's just that it does, and they've never bothered to get rid of it. It's the way they model it. So if you understand that the Quinnipiac poll has a bias towards the Democrats, you could say, okay, if it shows, for example, Biden up 1, well, maybe it's actually Trump up 2. So, for example, at the beginning of this year, it was Joe Biden up 6 points in January. In February, it was Joe Biden up 4 points. In March, it was Joe Biden up 3 points. In April, it was a tied race, 46-46. And then back in May, it was again Joe Biden up 1 point. So the trend line had been soft support. It had been back in December, for reference. It had been Biden up 1. So 1 and then 6 and then 4 and then 3 and the tie. Biden up 1. So now Biden is up. Actually, no, it's Trump up 4 in the Quinnipiac poll, 49-45. It just hit the wires. 1,405 registered voters with a margin of error of 2.6%. Donald Trump is, for the first time since November of last year when he was up 2 points, Donald Trump is up 4 points in the Quinnipiac poll. Again, this is important. The Quinnipiac poll has a Democratic bias. It is well known and well regarded. Pollster, who everyone on the left and the right acknowledges has a Democratic bias. So just as the Fox News poll has bounced towards Joe Biden, the Quinnipiac poll has bounced towards Donald Trump. You can make of that what you will, but the trend line here essentially is notable, and the trend line is that the conviction of Donald Trump really hasn't had the effect that everyone said it would. I'm sorry, I'm pushing this out. For a pollster to have that much of a Democratic bias to suddenly have Trump up 4 is really extremely notably. It's significant. By the way, if it's a 5-way race, Donald Trump's up 6 in the Quinnipiac poll. And also now Donald Trump in the Real Clear Politics polling average has gotten ahead of 1%. He had been all the way down to a half percentage point ahead. He's now up 1.6%. Nate Silver formerly at 538. That was his site. He sold at ABC. They kicked him out. They still have it. But Nate Silver out on his own says that Donald Trump right now has a 65.7% chance of winning. Joe Biden a 33.7% chance of winning. That's based on his polling model. And that, my friends, is another red flag for the Democrats as they head to the debate. And you've got guys like Van Jones trying to talk about and repackage the Trump years. This is Van Jones on CNN.
Remember how awful and terrible the Trump days were. I mean, there was a reason that he got voted out. And so now there's this weird kind of nostalgia for the Trump days, which if you look back at any of the headlines or any of what was going on, nobody was happy during that period of time. It was a complete upset all the time.
You know, the wild and crazy thing is that more and more Americans have fond memories of the Trump tenure in office because of how bad things are right now, because of how the Biden administration has messed up the fundamentals of government. Ron Viello was the head of Border Patrol for a while. He was on Fox News on this border issue.
Well, all of the Border Patrol processing facilities have been over capacity for quite some time. ICE's detention space is probably underfunded given the volume of activity that's happening at the border. And then this administration, you can just tell they're tone deaf on this issue. Besides having no credibility, what's happened at the southwest border is an absolute travesty. We saw what happened to this family in Houston, the family in New York a couple of days before. I mean, this is happening all over the country. And having fewer detention beds, having not enough funding for detention. I mean, think about the numbers that we just saw of the people that got away. That's a big problem. That's a big threat across the country. But you also have the government releasing people in vast numbers. The fastest way to deport somebody is to have them in detention. The fastest way not to be deported is to be out of detention. And there are millions of people in that situation just since the pendency of this presidency.
Y'all, this is, if Donald Trump can focus on this tomorrow, it's the fundamentals. It's the basics. It really is the basics. The basics of government aren't working right now. The mail is not being delivered in the Southeast and other parts of the country. The border is open. We've got terrorists running about the United States. We've got hackers getting into sensitive systems. This administration is more interested in getting kids to have transition surgeries, gender transition surgeries, than it is to fix a sometimes overwhelmed healthcare system. They've been cutting senior Medicare Part D, Medicare Advantage. They've now cut 2 years in a row funding for Medicare Part D for seniors. All of these things are going to matter. They've lost the plot, it seems like. I mean, the basic thing here is that a president will get reelected if he just provides people a good economy and some stability. I continue to believe that 2020 was not stolen and that Donald Trump would have gotten reelected but for COVID. Had Trump handled COVID differently, had he not gone through lockdowns, had he pushed Congress to not do mandates for the vaccine, had he pushed states not to close schools, had we not had the profound economic disruptions of COVID with businesses closing down and the like, I think Trump would have won a second term. I think that Donald Trump would have gone down as a president, and still, by the way, will. I think when history looks back on the madness that we're going through right now, what they're going to note, in all honesty, is that his policies weren't outside standard Republican policies. His behaviors may have been anomalous in the history of the presidency, but his policies were not. And over time, people have forgotten the behaviors that turned them off of Trump, but they remember the policies because they can compare and contrast them to right now. As I've said repeatedly over the course of this program in the last year, that we're not dealing with hypotheticals. You know, like for years, the environmentalists said 5 years from now, we're all going to be dead. 5 years from now, we're going to have all these disasters. We're now like 10 years beyond where they said 5 years would happen, and none of that stuff happened, and it's still not happening. The Obama administration, very famously, when it came into office, put up signs in Glacier National Park noting that due to climate change, by 2020, the glaciers would be melted. They took those signs down in 2021. The glaciers are still there. I mean, we've lived beyond the projections. The problem is, for the Trump-Biden race, we're not living in hypothetical worlds of what would a second Trump administration look like and how devastating would it be to the economy. The same economists right now saying that it's devastating are the economists who said Donald Trump's first tenure in office would be devastating, and it was really, really good until COVID. The economic engine of America, the oil production of the United States, our energy independence, our cost of living, everything was down. We were producing so much energy in the world that the cost of getting goods to farm were down, which meant prices were down, which meant you could buy more with your dollar, even though the dollar itself was not as strong as it is right now. The dollar is as strong as it is right now. It's making us have cheap trips to Europe, but everything for the rest of the world expensive. It's just kind of remarkable that we're about to have a debate between two 80-year-olds. And by the way, there's polling out. This is actually remarkable. This is remarkable. And again, you can say the pollings are wrong, but I mean, the polling is news. I tend to think the trends are good, even if the numbers aren't, but this is remarkable. And we see it poll to poll to poll to poll to poll to poll to poll. 65% of Americans do not want Joe Biden to be president of the United States. 60% of Americans do not want Donald Trump to be president of the United States. You got basically 2/3 of the United States says we would prefer anyone other than these two that the parties have given us. But the upside for Trump here is that 5% more Americans would prefer him to Joe Biden. In a close race, stuff like that matters. If you can maximize turnout, I continue, and I'm planting my flag here right now. If Donald Trump loses, it will not be because of a stolen election, though that is what will be claimed. It will be because of the ground game. The ground game is shaping up to be a bit of a mess for the GOP. They've outsourced it to third parties, many of whom are really good at making money but not executing. That's my concern is the ground game. But if they can figure it out, and if enough people show up just by virtue of it's a presidential election, I'm going to go vote. I think so many of the things the Biden administration is doing right now, they're doing because they're afraid too many people are going to go vote, and those people aren't voting for the man who wrecked the economy. And that man is not named Donald Trump. That man is named Joe Biden, and people are furious about it. People who wanted to go with Joe Biden because they thought we'd bring back normalcy. Instead, we've got the transgender assistant secretary of Health and Human Services trying to cover up how soon a kid should be able to get a mastectomy. People want normal times. And if neither candidate is going to give us normal times, at least go with the guy who had the most normal policies. And that man's name is Donald Trump, not Joe Biden. And that's what the Biden team forgets. Now, I don't want you to forget about Vision Computer because they can build you a great computer and save some money. Y'all listen, real quick here. I'm going to go to a computer site, by the way. Because I want to make a point about Vision. They didn't ask me to do this. I'm going to go to a well-known site. You can get a laptop. You can get a desktop. You can get an all-in-one. You can get IT. Okay, so let's go with these. So you get like one for creators, one for reliable, one for versatile, $700, mid $700, $1,000. You get. Do you want this one with letters, one with a name, one with something else? It's got a 13th generation Intel Core i7. It's got all this. You don't know what any of that stuff means. It's all Greek to you. And so how do you know you're getting the best thing that fits? This is why you should go to Vision, because you can call them at 404 Compute and say, look, here's my need, but here's my want as well. And they'll spec out a computer for you that's going to last you instead of going to one of these websites where you got all the gobbledygook. It's got a GeForce RTX 3050. What the hell is that? You have no idea. Vision, though, can be on the phone with you and build the computer for you, and then you get their tech support, too. So you call them at 404 Compute and you say, hey, I got my fancy machine, but I don't know how to do something. And for free, they'll tell you in 15 seconds or less, faster than a Google search, how to do it. But now let's say you did make the mistake. You went to one of the online websites. You got the gobbledygook machine. You don't know how to use it. You don't have tech support. If you call them, you go through a waiting hell where you got to press 5 and then 4 and then 3 and then 1 and then no habla español. With Vision, you just call them at 404 Compute. They answer the phone and you say, hey, I would like you to help me with my computer. I have a problem. For $179 for an entire year. For an entire year. They'll be your tech support solution. And then every time you have a problem, you call them and they fix it for you. They can even remote in. If you don't know how to do something, they'll tell you what to do. It's so worth it. It's a great investment for your peace of mind, for your company. So you and your employees can be great at your job, not at your computers. And if you're a mom or a dad and you need this at home, they can help you too. And if you buy your computer for Vision, this comes for free. Call them at 404 Compute. And if you tell them that Eric sent you, you're going to get an even better deal. VisionComputers.com. or 404 Compute. Call them. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're in Kalispell, Montana, Sacramento, California, Orlando, Florida. You too, Vision Computers can help you. 404 Compute. Hello and welcome. It's Eric. Y'all, I gotta tell you, the underlying data from Quinnipiac is just brutal for Biden if it's true that Donald Trump has consolidated a hold on men by 22 points, and Biden's only winning women by 13 points, which sounds massive, but he should be ahead by more than that. It is kind of wild. The left is going bonkers over Nate Silver at the same time the Quinnipiac poll drops because Nate Silver says Trump has a 65% chance of winning. So it's hate on Nate Silver Day. The liberal icon is now hated by the left for telling him Trump's probably going to win. And all this could change on a debate stage in Atlanta tomorrow night. CNN has released the first visuals of the debate stage. I was asked to go up there, and I absolutely not with the traffic. But here's the other thing. The Supreme Court accidentally put up an opinion today that they didn't release about the Idaho case on abortion, where essentially saying that Idaho, there's no problem there. Idaho already said that for emergency reasons, abortions would be performed. And so we'll see what the actual text says. But these next 2 days are going to be massive days for the United States Supreme Court because we have these massive outstanding cases. And given the lineup, there are 2 cases outstanding from December where Roberts and Gorsuch haven't issued opinions. So we can expect that several of them, there's the Purdue Pharma case and the Jarkessi SEC case. They're probably authoring those. In January, there's still a case outstanding. And you've got the Looper Bright case. And Roberts, who hates the Chevron decision, is probably writing that case because he's the last guy from January to have written something. In February, there are 3 cases outstanding and 3 conservatives who haven't written majority opinions, Alito, Gorsuch, and Barrett, for the month of February. And you got some big cases there. You got the net choice case about regulating social media entities as utilities. And then in April, there are 4 cases outstanding. John Roberts is not written any cases from April yet. They each get 2 typically. So Gorsuch, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and John Roberts on 2 cases. And guess what you've got argued in April? You've got U.S. versus Trump, or Trump versus U.S. You got Oregon versus Johnson. You've got some big cases coming in the next 2 days in the United States Supreme Court. So tomorrow we have more drops from the Supreme Court that are going to be huge. And you've also got the debate. So 2 massive news days over the next 48 hours. So stick here. I'll do my best to navigate you through the headlines as responsibly as I possibly can over the next 2 days. But just massive, massive news to cover coming in the next 2 days.